breaking news from the Senate of Canada. A serious debate is raising big questions about government powers and mass cancellation. Officials are discussing whether existing powers are not enough and why there is a need for even stronger control. This has created concern. What exactly is being planned, and when can these powers be used? Is this about protection, or is there a bigger issue that has not been fully explained to the public? The discussion is deep, complex, and important. But many people are not aware of what is being said. In this video, you will see the actual debate and hear the questions that are now being raised at the highest level. If you miss this, you may miss an important truth. Stay with us and watch this carefully.
Not correct for you to say that the mass cancellation of permanent resident cards does not change the status of those holding permanent resident cards. That is misleading and an insult to the intelligence of Canadians.
In the next segment, you will hear from Senator Yuen in the Senate of Canada. He is speaking about a serious issue that could affect thousands of permanent residents across the country. According to Senator Wu, the government already has the authority to cancel individual permanent resident cards for criminal activity or security threats. But now, the discussion has turned to mass cancellation, a move that could impact people on a much larger scale. He questions, if existing powers are sufficient for individual cases, why is there a push to cancel multiple cards at once? This is not just a political debate. The implications are serious, and the consequences could affect people who believe their status is safe. So, the question for viewers is simple. Should the government have this kind of power? If you think you know the answer, comment below. If not, stay tuned, because what you are about to see reveals a harsh reality that many Canadians are still unaware of. Now let's listen to Senator Yuen as he speaks.
In any case, we're not talking about the cancellation of individual permanent resident cards. You already have the power. You already have the power to cancel, to determine inadmissibility based on criminality and terrorist activities and so on. You have that power already. Why do you need the power for mass cancellation of permanent resident cards? People who are here with permanent resident cards, mass cancellation, which affects their status, no doubt about that.
What if the government could shut down the immigration system without the public knowing, affecting thousands of people? In a shocking revelation, Senator Lena Metlege Diab admits that the government's emergency powers can be used behind closed doors, without clear limits, and sometimes without any public warning. She refers to a 2016 incident when the immigration system shut down during a security issue, showing that even important systems can be interrupted, leaving people in the dark. This raises serious questions about transparency and accountability. If the minister or government can act without public knowledge, who really is protected? Many Canadians are unaware of how far these powers go and how they could impact their status and safety. What you need to know. The minister claims these powers are for exceptional cases, but there are no clear rules defining when or how they can be used. System shutdowns and security incidents show that decisions can be made suddenly, leaving people unaware and vulnerable. Cabinet or government and council approval is required, but the public gets little information, making it difficult to hold anyone accountable. The use of these powers can undermine trust in government, showing that decisions made behind closed doors can affect thousands of innocent people.
So again, any use of these powers is only used for exceptional purpose. This is not, and it's not just the minister. It needs to go to cabinet, it needs to go to government in council, needs to be advertised. There needs to be detailed explanation. In 2016, I was not a federal person, but there was an attack on the immigration, I knew because I was in another country, on the ircc system, and it shut down.
What if a single cyber attack or illegitimate action could pause the immigration system, affecting thousands of people without warning? Senator Lena Metlege Diab reveals the dark side of how emergency powers can be used. She admits that in exceptional circumstances, such as cyber attacks or illegitimate use, the government can suspend immigration processes in bulk. Instead of checking case by case, which would be slow and costly, they can pause everything first and then decide whether to reinstate status or not. This shows how powerful and unchecked these powers can be, leaving many people vulnerable without any notice. What you need to know. The government can pause immigration systems in bulk during cyber attacks or security issues, affecting thousands without individual notice. Checking case by case is seen as too slow and expensive, so emergency powers allow actions that impact many people at once. There is limited transparency, and most Canadians have no way of knowing when or why these powers are used. The decisions made behind closed doors can have real-life consequences, making people unaware and vulnerable to systemic changes.
But there are examples where sometimes there could be a cyber attack. There could be illegitimate purposes are using. These are exceptional circumstances rather than trying to find it one by one, which is extremely inefficient, extremely costly. And this is to pause, find out if there's a sufficient evidence. You can then, decide to reinstate or not.
Could the government mass cancel permanent resident cards to stop people from returning to Canada during a crisis? Senator Yuen raises a shocking possibility during the COVID pandemic. He points out that hundreds of thousands of Canadians with permanent resident cards were living abroad and may have wanted to come back, but travel restrictions were in place. The question he raises is harsh. Could the government have used mass cancellation to prevent people from returning? This shows how emergency powers could be used to control not just individuals, but entire groups without public knowledge or consent. What you need to know. During the COVID crisis, hundreds of thousands of Canadians abroad could have been impacted by mass cancellation of permanent resident cards. Emergency powers give the government the ability to act in bulk, sometimes without any public warning or transparency. There is a possibility that such powers could be used to control who can enter the country, showing the extent of government control. Most Canadians are unaware that their status or right to return can be impacted by decisions made in secret.
If I could just pick up on the COVID example. At the time COVID took place, there would have been hundreds of thousands of Canadians with permanent resident cards living abroad who maybe wanted to come back, subject to travel restrictions and so on. Is it a possibility that you would mass cancel their permanent resident cards precisely to prevent them from coming back to the country?
Could the government use mass cancellation of permanent resident cards under the guise of a public health emergency? Senator Taralang reveals how emergency powers are tied to public interest, often defined by public health. She admits that under normal circumstances, the government would not recommend mass cancellation. But in a public health crisis, the department could argue a case to the governor and council, allowing them to use these powers. This shows how the public interest can be used as a legal cover to justify actions that would otherwise be unacceptable. The harsh truth is that these powers could be invoked during emergencies, and the general public might never know how or why they are used. Many Canadians are unaware that their status could be affected under such claims. What you need to know. The department says mass cancellation would not normally be recommended, but emergency powers can be activated if there is a public health crisis. Public interest is the legal basis, but it can be broadly interpreted to justify actions affecting thousands. The government could present a use case to the Order in Council, meaning decisions can be made without full public disclosure. Even when powers are claimed to protect public health, they can have far-reaching consequences on permanent residents and others relying on immigration systems.
That would not be a situation in which the department would recommend to the governor and council. It could not be, because we would have to have it be defined in the public interest, and the public interest is defined as
Public health. You say it in the book.
But if there was a situation where there was a public health emergency, then the department might make a use case to the Order and Council.
What if your permanent resident card does not actually guarantee your status in Canada? In this part, Senator Yuen raises a direct question based on official information, that a PR card proves a person has permanent resident status. But Senator Tara Lung gives a different and shocking response. She says the PR card may show status, but it does not control or impact the status itself. It is only an identification document. This creates confusion and raises serious concerns. If the card does not guarantee status, then what really does? And how secure is a person's status if the main document they hold is only for identification? This is a critical detail that many people in Canada do not fully understand, and it changes how people should see their status in documents.
Proves that you have PR status in Canada. This is from your website.
Okay. It might prove that you have PR status, but it does not impact your status. It is an identification document.
What if your permanent resident card can be canceled in bulk, even if you did nothing wrong? Senator Tara Lung gives an example that reveals another side of these powers. She explains that if there is an administrative error where cards are issued to the wrong people, the government can mass cancel those cards and reissue them. While this is presented as a process for correction and benefit, it also shows how easily large numbers of cards can be canceled at once. This raises serious questions about how these powers can be used and what protections are in place for people who are affected. The public is told this is not to cause harm, but it also confirms that mass cancellation is possible, even in cases where people may not be at fault. Many Canadians are not aware of how these processes work and how they could be impacted. What you need to know. The government can mass cancel PR cards if there is an administrative error, even if the person did nothing wrong. The government can mass cancel PR cards if there is an administrative error, even if the person did nothing wrong. Reissuing cards may happen later, but the initial cancellation can still create confusion and uncertainty. This raises concerns about how often such powers can be used and how much control the system really has over individual documents.
An example of a case where we might want to cancel permanent resident cards is if there was an administrative error and a bunch of cards, say, were issued to the wrong people incorrectly, we could mass cancel them and reissue them to the correct people without any fees offered to the clients. This is a use that we would want to have for the document control. It's not to harm, it's also to benefit.
In this video, we have seen a serious debate from the Senate of Canada that raises important questions about government powers and how they are used. From mass cancellation to emergency actions, this discussion shows how decisions can be made on a large scale and affect many people at the same time. We also learned that these powers can be used in special situations like cyber attacks or public health emergencies, and that systems can be paused or controlled when needed. Another key point is that a PR card is only an identification document, which changes how people should understand their status in Canada. This is information that many Canadians do not know, but it is very important to understand. If you want more updates on immigration news, Canada current affairs, and more Senate breakdowns, make sure to subscribe to Canada Insight Network and stay informed.